patiently waiting, because she has really been at the centre of what has been going on this week over in Crowborough. Basically, thousands of protesters took to the streets. I was there, and it was particularly over the 27 single male migrants that were moved into this military camp, or shall I say former military camp. They were moved in the middle of the night, pretty much without the locals' knowledge, and I feel like just overnight everything has changed for that town. So there were many out there protesting. Kim has been sort of at the centre of it. She's part of this sort of Crowborough Shield, which is vehemently against what has been happening in their town. Kim, how are you feeling after the weekend of protests? There was a massive turnout, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was huge. I think it was our biggest one yet. I think the biggest one to date was around 5,000, but this actually seemed a lot bigger. One of the key issues is that it's not actually a disused army barracks. It's a training centre for cadets that's used by thousands and thousands of cadets, but also young people that do the Duke of Edinburgh Award, the Girl Guides, the Scouts, and none of this has been consulted with in terms of either the cadets or the local community. There's nothing with local organisations, the police, in terms of extra resources. It's just been a complete shambles. And they were moved in under the cover of darkness on Thursday morning after, I think, about 7 hours after the Home Secretary had announced that she'd made her decision. There was 27 that went in to start with, but I think there's been several more, 5 or 6 more coach loads since.
Yeah, it seems like Shabana Mahmood really has plans to continue to do this across the country. I mean, she's basically threatening other towns with this. Now, she said, this is about getting rid of those flashy, expensive hotels, and this is a much cheaper option. This is even a deterrent. I don't think I'm going to fall for that crap. I mean, seeing how those migrants have already implanted themselves within the community. I was reading on Twitter, already a woman was followed around a supermarket, allegedly, and there might be footage of that. We've got women pulling their children out of local schools because they don't feel safe. I spoke to someone at one of the protests saying that, she's got an 18-year-old daughter who catches the bus right outside that barracks. Her daughter won't be able to have that basic freedom anymore. What type of assault has this what type of impact has this assault had on the community?
Well, I mean, as you say, it's alleged at the moment. We have received information about a young woman that was allegedly followed around in the supermarket, which is, really worrying. I haven't had any formal reports, and I'm not sure whether there's a police report at the moment. So at the moment, I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but I will find out. As part of Crowborough Shield, we are taking the legal action, and this is, vital information that we need for the legal case, because the one thing that this site is meant to be is safe, legal and compliant, and in that is risk assessments, safeguarding, impact assessments, and none of that's been done. And that's quite evident if already after a few days we're seeing that there are problems. So we will get to the bottom of it, but at the moment I don't have the information on it that I can share. So
Labour doesn't seem to really be listening, do they? I mean, what would an actual what would something that they could do to the community actually be right now? Because it just seems, I was actually just looking at Shabana Mahmood do an interview on another station, and she just seems completely blissfully unaware of what is going on. What would you say to Labour right now?
I mean, it's reckless, and Shabana Mahmood is behaving recklessly. She's making these decisions. She's literally moving one problem to another area. There's no solution. She's not giving a solution. She's not providing anything that is tangible that actually shows this is an improvement. It's lip service. She's saying we want to get them out of hotels because it's costly and because it impacts on communities, which is absolutely true. But this is an even bigger impact and an even bigger cost. So I don't understand how she's coming to the conclusion that kicking out thousands of cadets, placing 540, and although we say 540, it's actually about 2,400 to 2,800 because they're going to be rolling. So they're only apparently going to be at the camp for 70 to 90 days, and then another 90 will come in, and after that another 90. So this is thousands of different men, and it's just moving problems around. But what she's saying is she wants to reduce the impact on communities. This is not a reduction on a community. This is absolutely destroying a community, or the cohesion of a community, because the fears are real. They're genuine fears that these families have got because they're not being addressed and no one is engaging. And the problem is, Shabana Mahmood is going onto these media channels and saying that she's been, engaging with communities, engaging with police. She's engaged with no one. The partner organisation, our Wealdon District Council, she hasn't even spoke to them. They don't respond to their letters. And, our Wealdon Council just keep threatening that they're going to explore legal action, but there's nothing tangible coming out of them either. It's the whole thing is just reckless and a shambles.
Absolutely, and I feel like it's women and children that are always put on the front lines of these things. I mean, just today we've had revealed to us that there was an asylum seeker who raped an 18-year-old girl 2 different times, and they obviously, the judge called Shiraz Malik was, the attacker, but the judge who I've got, Nirmal Shant, they both from kind of the same region of Pakistan, which is quite interesting there, but that's why I kind of got confused. But it's quite interesting how he was protected, and they didn't want the fact that he was an asylum seeker to get out because of, as you said, community cohesion. Do you think that Crowborough is susceptible to one of these attacks? Do you think it's just a matter of time until one of the women or one of the children is sort of sacrificed at the altar of this compassion?
I think wherever you place a large number of men with nothing to do, there is always going to be a risk. There are cultural differences between the people that are coming over on the boats and obviously British culture, but whether you put 540 of these men or 540 other men with nothing to do, the risk is real. It's going to cause problems. There are going to be criminals in that group, and our Sussex Police Crime Commissioner has said that she knows that there will be criminals in those groups of people that come over, because the problem is we know nothing about them. They're coming over undocumented, and we're not talking about 540 men static that over the course of the year will start to integrate or build relationships. This is, they're here for 70 to 90 days and then they're moved on, and then we get someone new. So this is 2,500 men undocumented coming into this town. Of course there's a risk, and even the police accept there is risks. The Police Crime Commissioner has asked for an extra $5.5 million just to police this in the first year. Now, that money is not forthcoming at the moment. There has been no additional resources. The only thing that we've got is some CCTV, which may act as a deterrent, but probably not.
Yeah, one of the residents that I spoke to even on the weekend just said that it's turned into a very oppressive environment over there in Crowborough because of all this extra policing, It's making the residents feel more safe, but it's also having other impacts in some way because it's, everyone's being surveilled, and it's just completely changed the fabric of the town. Kim Bailey, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all the good work that you're doing. Keep going, keep fighting the good fight. I'm sure we'll see you out there in one of the protests quite soon. Well, Kim had a lot to share, and I've got in the studio with me 2 brilliant women. I've got Orla Minnie-Hain, Chair of Waltham Forest Reform UK and candidate in Epping Forest for Reform UK as well. A very impressive lady. And joining her is Amanda Devlin, the Assistant Showbiz Editor at The Sun. Hello and welcome, both of you.
Welcome, thank you.
Look, it's been a week, and I do feel like, as we were talking about earlier, you've kind of been covering this for years. You've been banging the drum for a long time, and now it's hitting all these different parts of Britain. Are you surprised by the protests in Crowborough, or is this just a symptom of what's more to come?
No, I think, Crowborough compared to Epping is a lot bigger. It's a bigger town. It's, I think the population's about 22,000.
Yep.
And what's being done to them, if you like, the numbers of men that are going into this camp are far, far bigger than we have in Epping. So in Epping, there's 138 men. And as far as I'm aware, and I'm pretty certain, the men are stagnant, so that it isn't a processing centre such as the migrant camp in Crowborough. Canary Wharf was the same, so the Britannia in Canary Wharf was a processing centre. So this in and out of different men is just so unsettling. I'm not surprised, because I knew that there was so much disdain around what they're doing. And when I went to Crowborough the first time for the first protest, I remember looking around thinking, these people don't know what's hit them. They don't know what's going to hit them, because this is going to be big and this is going to be really troubling. And that's what's happened. So weeks, and I think it's 9 weeks on, you've got these big protests, which is what we had in Epping in the beginning. As time's gone on, we're 7 months in now. It feels like 7 years. Nothing's changed. We've been through court hearings, we've been through ups and downs, we've been through, yes, we're going to close the hotel, no, we're not going to close the hotel. And now we're in this situation where we're the exact same place as we were 7 months ago. And actually, the hotel itself is in a really sort of, it's dilapidated. It's in disrepair. Yeah. We've got gates outside and fencing, and that's as you go into Epping. So Epping's a beautiful town, much like Crowborough, and it just looks like. It looks like something from the Bronx in 1920. So it's just put a really sour taste in people's mouths, and that's what's happening in Crowborough.
It's really interesting, isn't it, with Epping, because you actually have a ruling where the Home Office did say, no, the rights of the asylum seekers are above the rights of the British people. You've got basically evidence of how they really feel about you over there, and you've had girls sexually assaulted in your very constituency and nothing done about it. And then of course we had the Hadush Kabutu nightmare where he was one of the people, the person who sexually assaulted one of those girls, being let out of prison. I mean, you've really been slapped in the face multiple times by this government. I mean, could it get worse? Do you feel like you've gone to the end of the rails with them and you're just going to have to wait for another government to come in? Or what is the sort of position at the moment in that community? Because I almost feel like we're looking into the future from Crowborough into Epping, if that makes sense.
Look, Shabana Mahmood posted the other day, and I'm sure you saw it, and she almost rejoiced at her decision. Look at me, what a fantastic, I'm moving them to camps, brilliant, we're getting rid of the hotels. No one cares about the hotels. We don't care about the cost of the hotels. That's not the issue. It's the safety and risk that these men pose. So we don't care if they're in a tent or they're in a hotel. They're there. People don't want them there. Now, I've been very, very vocal about who we're seeing coming now. The men that are coming over now are the dregs of the illegal migrants. They're the men that have been sitting in Calais, that have been, most of them, been kicked out of other countries in Europe for various different crimes, or they failed asylum, and now they're coming over here. We are literally the dustbin of Europe. And I mean, that sounds harsh, but it's true. And we have got, you'll see people that have committed a crime in Germany, and then they'll come here, they'll commit another crime. We try to get them deported to Germany, and they won't take them because the ECHR say they can't go. The whole thing is an absolute shambles. In Epping now, we know that the contract with the hotel ends. I think it's in May, April or May, and we think that we don't think that that's going to be extended. But those men are going to be placed in Epping in HMOs, or they're going to go somewhere else and be put in someone else's town and become a risk to someone else's children and someone else's community.
But as if that's not problematic enough. But what I find really concerning is that there are British people who have been homeless out on the streets. How come that crisis wasn't being able to deal with it so quickly, of just suddenly setting up this camp and housing everyone and feeding everyone and looking after our own?
Exactly.
It just feels so troubling that you can see it all happen so much quicker for everyone else, whether they're here illegally or not. And it's worrying.
You know, the
threat that it comes with. And we've got a lot of people we need to help.
You've got
we
veterans,
need veterans
thousands
who
of
are there.
veterans
Yes.
asleep. We were incredible.
How do they feel about that? It must be infuriating for them to be sat watching the news and seeing this all unfold and think, hang on, where was my support? Where was my help when I really needed it after what I did for our country?
Oh no, it's outrageous. There was a man actually the other day in Crowborough, and we were walking up the hill, and he was sleeping rough. Did you see him? And he was sitting there looking at this protest.
Yeah.
And he had all his worldly belongings, and he's sitting there, and it was freezing and raining, and that man's probably sitting there thinking, are you, what is going on?
Well, totally. I feel like a lot of these measures were made in Britain in a time of more sort of deeper prosperity, but this is a time of complete austerity. We are a broke country, basically. We're bankrupt if you look at any of the figures, and the fact that you're right, we're ingratiating these asylum seekers as soon as they arrive, or these illegal migrants, as we should call them. It's interesting what you said as well about taking the dregs of society, because even just to bring up this case that's come out today, where we had Lee Anderson, who's a Reform MP, he exposed that basically this rapist asylum seeker basically the judge involved ordered the jury not to be told about his immigration status. And we know that he was born in Pakistan, so he arrived in Italy, then went to Germany, as you said, then France, before coming to the UK. Now, as far as I can see, those are all safe countries. Now, when he got to the UK, he decided to go and rape one of our own. She was 18, it was in a park. And it was multiple times that he raped her. So this is kind of who's being brought in.
And the worst thing is trying
system.
to say that it was consensual. And so we go to trial, and thank goodness that Lee Anderson did speak up about this, because the reporting restrictions on this are just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And it needs to be out there. Who is that judge to say otherwise? You know, we are a free press. We deserve to have all of the information.
Yeah, and I think that the last time I checked, there wasn't a war in Pakistan either.
Well, exactly, and they
So what?
they have massive asylum numbers for some reason. I wonder why. I mean, you've got to be a very enterprising individual to go and find a people smuggler and smuggle your way across the channel and do all that. So you're right. It's these men who have already broken the law that we're now we're giving all these freebies to. Even in Crowborough, it's created a lot of tensions because it was found out that they had an on-site NHS GP.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no one in Crowborough that can just go and tap a doctor on the shoulder.
Dentist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, the thing is as well, we've got, so there's all the cost and the public spend that goes on, the accommodation and the meals and everything else. You've got to remember that most of these men also need interpreters. The interpreter bill is off the clock as well. Right. And then the other day we saw actually I was speaking to Kim, and she said that people were coming in with brand new bags full of coats and trainers, and you know, there are families that can't buy their kids a new pair of trainers because they're trying to make ends meet. So they're having to go to, you know, charity shops, or they have to go into to school and get things from the second-hand box. This is not okay on any level.
That makes me so angry about the doctors being right there for them to access, because I was trying to make my mum an appointment, and you know how you used to be able to call at 8, and then that was a disaster, but now it's going online, and I was trying to help her do it. I couldn't do it. I was really trying to it was just took forever. And going through all the options, all it was saying was like, are you male, female, not specified, like, or do you need a translator, do you need this, do you need that? And it was going through everything, and I just thought, my goodness, where have we gone wrong? How has this ended up happening?
Yeah, exactly. You're completely right, Amanda. It's two-tier. It is really that for them and something separate for the British people. That's what it really seems. I mean, even when I was in Hillingdon, which is quite a working-class community, there were mums who were saying to me, I have to choose between giving my child dinner or giving my child breakfast before they go to school. And literally across the road from this woman is an asylum hotel where they're getting 3 hot meals prepared for them
and all
per
their
day.
heating and their hot water and and Sky TV. It's the unfairness is just off the clock. And I, again, going back to Epping, I remember an old lady saying to me, I lost my husband a year ago, I'm 82, I can't put my heating on, and when I go to Tesco, which is in Epping town, I go to pay, and she said, and I've got £5 mainly that I can sway for my sort of, you know, my accounting, if you like, for the month, what I can spend. And she said, and I'm thinking to myself, I need to put that back. And these guys are coming in with bags and just taking booze.
Yeah, it's
walking
not
out.
right.
No one challenges them. Then they go to the hotel, you know.
Well, in Wethersfield, they're getting bussed into the town. So it's just... And then, you know, you get judges like this from this case today that are saying that they're basically going to hide the identity of this because of community cohesion. Mm-hmm. And the real root cause is not addressed. If we didn't have this inequality, then we wouldn't have community cohesion issues. And I think that's the problem. When the government's trying to keep secrets from us, when they're trying to sweep things under the rug, that's when their actual protests start and when there are issues. And it's quite... In Australia, we actually did solve our illegal immigrant crisis. And we just don't really have this level of almost... I would say it's almost at boiling point. Would you say
absolutely
that?
And I mean, the thing is that as I've always said right from the beginning, and we wrote to the Home Office actually, and a couple of 3 weeks ago nearly, and I said, what is the plan? Because you're not just having to deal with this this, you know, 60,000 people, 60,000 men that have come over since Labour came into government. but they're still coming in.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't fix a leak when the tap's still on, switch the tap off and then look at what you're going to do with the ones here. And I have spoken to a whistleblower, and I know that if the asylum is rejected, they will get a letter that goes to the hotel and it will say, you need to be out of the hotel in 3 days. Nobody checks that they go because they have to leave. No one checks where they're going.
Right.
So what do they think they're going to do?
didn't
Go
know about
online
that.
and book a flight Ryanair back to Paris? You know, so there are. I think last count there was a publication that said it was about 53,000 people are missing in the UK.
Oh my goodness.
Where they're just, no one knows who they are because no one knows who they were in the beginning. So they're just flitting around. We've seen evidence in Epping Forest of camps being set up where they're just like up, you know, just.
It's unacceptable, honestly.
But it's worrying that you've got sort of the authorities working together on it, because with that case that you mentioned, Lee Anderson, he claims that he had been asked not to publicise the case by the police themselves because of fear of jeopardising the prosecution. And you just feel as though, you know, wait, hang on, are we doing this for the safety of other, like, what is the actual meaning or the reasoning behind this? Is it for our safety?
No, it's not.
And it doesn't
It's not.
feel that way. And I think perception's everything. And we need to know that the people who are in charge we can trust.
Yeah, it's not. It's just to keep everyone quiet because they're terrified that if the truth came out and their numbers came out, there would be absolute anarchy. And today, Stephanie Irons, the girl came. Was 23. Her guy that was a Nigerian guy that came here in 2022 pleaded guilty yesterday to her murder, and it's only hit the papers now. Now, I raised that 6 months ago because we found out about it, but because it wasn't in the public domain and it was alleged that he'd killed her, even though he admitted it, nobody was talking about it. So when I started talking about it and said, do you know how many of these women are being murdered? Not just raped, murdered. Everyone said, oh, you're just causing trouble. You're just... No, why am I... I'm not lying.
Well, one
So
is
now
one
it's
too
going-
many, you know, in
Yeah.
this situation.
And we're going to hear, as time goes on, more and more and more of these girls, not just raped and sexually assaulted, although that's horrendous, but murdered as well. And when that comes out, people are going, why haven't we heard about this? Because, as you say, they will say, keep it quiet, because if you don't, it will jeopardise the hearing, it will jeopardise the sentencing, and the families...
That's what creates distrust.
Of course. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
totally. And like one of my biggest issues with all this is that, you know, you can't actually report on it a lot of the time, but B, it's just women and children are put at the front lines of it all, and we're totally sort of written off, and unfortunately a lot of these assaults, a lot of these attacks are happening, and people say, oh, but you know, we have our own rapists in this country. Of course we do, but we don't need to import the issue. That's kind of the bottom line.
Exactly.
I mean, not to add to the problem that we've already got.
Exactly. It's really a dire situation. I'm glad we can talk about it all as women, because I mean we are the ones actually facing the issues that the government just seems to, in their cozy Westminster bubble, just absolutely doesn't seem to think it's a problem.
It reminds me of going to the doctors as a female and you're seeing a male doctor and you're telling them that you know something's not right with your body, and they put it down to, it's probably, you know, time
Hormones.
of the month, it's hormones, it's this and it's that. And you know, you've got girls who are killing themselves with mental health issues because of these that have just gone on for so long, not solved. And you just feel that, like, well, how come there can't be a bit of trust the people here who are good, decent people who are telling you about something that's happening that's going really badly wrong, and stop it before it gets out
You
of
think that they'd have learned from the rape gang scandal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is
Exactly.
just... And I mean, again, this government have done nothing about that. And
In fact, they made it worse.
It's
Jess
just-
Phillips,
and
all
I mean,
of
I
those.
don't even
my
get me
goodness.
started.
No, we need a whole other.
that's a
we need a
whole
whole
program
other
itself.
podcast for that. But look, yeah, and it's also just quickly. I mean, in cases, they're actually using ages of consent in some of these countries as justification for why those men might have made those moves. So, in Rwanda, it's only this age of consent, so that's why, you know, that person felt the need to go and approach a 14-year-old. So it's just a dire situation. We can't keep bending down to whatever the hell they're doing, and I just think it needs to stop.
Yeah.